Good morning, it's Frugal here. As always, I have my coffee because otherwise somebody might just get killed. So today we're talking about cash flow, okay? And how cash flow works within the personal finance sphere. We're going to touch on a couple of things. We're going to talk about debt. We're also going to talk about a little bit about your budget. We're going to talk about how do you just work with your money on a day-to-day basis. So I know a lot of people struggle with it, right? I mean, you go for retail therapy, you say, listen, I'm desperately needing some things, and you go over budget, or you don't even have a budget. But I want to challenge your thoughts on what you think a budget is. So for me, a budget is very much my relationship with money. It's how the way that I can keep my finger on the pulse to see what's happening in my money. So is it something that tells me I'm really bad and terrible? Absolutely not. What it is it's something that you can take, okay, and you can build a relationship with it. Let me explain. So when you want to attract a mate, you want to have a life partner, you wouldn't just walk up to somebody and say, marry me, I love you, I want your children. What we do is we go and we speak to them, we check them out, we first see what are we going to what do we have, who are they, what do they do, and then we start escalating the relationship, i.e. we're putting ourselves out there. So budget is the same. What you do in the beginning for a budget is just looking. You're looking to see where your money is going. So me and my wife did this. We actually checked to see where our money was going in the beginning, and it was quite shocking that we found out we're spending so much money on takeaways. And the thing that shocked us most about it was that takeaways aren't really that important to us. But it's like all our money was just flowing into takeaways. So what we've done is we've just said, listen, like when I come home from work at that time, I was like, oh my goodness, should we go for, takeaways or eat at a restaurant? And then we remembered, oh my goodness, spending so much money on takeaways. So we decided rather not, let's make something at home and we can spend that money on something that we value more, that's more important to us. So this is it. Once you realize where your money is going, you can start deciding the flow of where your money is going. So this brings me to the area of cash flow. What is cash flow? Cash flow is the cash that is flowing through you. For a business, it would be the same. So what you would find in a business is you would say, I have expenses, I have income, money coming in, money going out, and the difference between the two is the cash flow that you have. If you're spending more than what you're earning, it means that it's negative, it is bad, and you are probably basically bankrupt. If a business is spending more than what they're earning, they're going to have to make debt, or they're going to have to liquidate, sell things that they own so that they can cover those costs. But we'll get to that in a second. So basically, cash flow is the idea like your veins where your blood flows in. It brings life to all of your cells. And if you can lower your expenses and up your income, that would be the ideal. So you can actually get more money to play with. When I say to play with, it could be for a savings goal, an investment goal, or maybe you want to get a kid or something, and you can get money in place for that. So let's quickly get back here. When we're talking about personal finances, it's very similar like a business, like I've mentioned. What we have is we've got income, it's money in, we've got expenses, money out. We also have assets and liabilities. Now, in the personal finance sphere, we tend to define assets as something that generates you money. In an accountancy context, it'll be something that you buy that you can sell for a good price. That would be like a car, a house, a painting, gold, something like that, that actually you can sell for something. An asset could also be something like cash that you have in a share portfolio, or, well, you've got shares, right? You don't have cash then. It could also be something like property that is generating you cash. So the idea would be that you want multiple assets and a diverse portfolio to generate your income, right? Because the more income you have, the more money you have to play with. But also, obviously, if your expenses escalate accordingly, it doesn't quite work, does it? So the art of keeping your expenses low but growing your income is it's an art. It's exactly what it is. It is not as easy as it sounds. So then what you also get is you get liabilities. Now, if you have debt, debt is a liability. It's a cost that basically monthly, an expense that you need to pay back. It is not an expense just like your running costs, something like I have to buy food, I have to buy, I have to, put food in my mouth. I need, electricity so that I can, have a hot shower. It is some things that you buy that on credit. It is the things that it's basically sometimes backed by an asset, but sometimes not. And I would normally say something like a car is a good example for that. Yes, you do need the car, but you've got a massive liability of debt when you buy a car on debt, right? On a loan. So you're going to have to pay that money back. That is a liability. If you can take those four things and you can put them together, you know what your income is, you know what your monthly expenses is. So that's your running costs, the food that you buy, the clothes that you have to buy, otherwise you're going to run around in the nude, those type of things. You might need a laptop to do your work. Can be under the asset column. It might be you have a rental property or you have dividends, stocks. So you've got stocks that basically generates you income from the asset column. And then you've got expenses, which is debt. So that would be clothing accounts, car loans. Even if it's a home loan that you actually living in the home, that is actually a liability, i.e. it's money that's going out of your account. It's not money coming into your account. So ideally what you want, like I said, up the income, lower the expenses, having a low liability column, and having lots of assets. Because if assets can generate you money, you are going to work well with your cash flow. Well, your cash flow is going to be better because all of the things that's eating your money is not going to be there. So let's continue now. Let's talk about this debt thing, right? So you've got a couple of options if you have debt. Now, sometimes you do need professional help, and I highly recommend that you do speak to a professional if you realize that, oh my goodness, it is the end of the world and you physically just cannot repay, that your expenses is so much more than your income. There are certain things that you can do. The one that I highly do not like personally is being declared bankrupt, because you are basically not going to get a loan ever or basically get anything. You're going to have to do everything cash for the rest of your life probably, depending obviously on the country's laws and all of that, but I don't recommend that. What you also get is you get debt review. So what debt review does is it basically goes and the debt counselor negotiates with all your creditors, i.e. the people that you owe money, that you need to give them money, right? And you can't repay that. And what they do is they say, okay, we're going to extend the term. We're going to make it 30 years rather than 20 years. We're going to lower the interest rate. We're going to say, if you only pay back this amount of money, we'll be happy. But the way that works under the hood is that you will get a mark against your name for the remainder of you being under debt review. And many places will ask if you ever have been under debt review. Now, according to South African law at the moment, what it does under the hood is when you get out of debt review, it removes that marks. It forces all the credit bureau to actually remove that mark from you, so they can't trace it back to you. But in some cases, it doesn't really solve the problem. It just basically lets you pay back the debt with special clauses and then allows you to make more debt, which is obviously not great. And that's why something like a budget, something like knowing where your money is going is so important, so that you actually know, okay, listen, I'm working well with my money and I'm building generational wealth. I'm building assets for me and my family for the long run. Now, the next option with debt is that you want to repay the debt. There are two options for this. The first option is you can use the snowball method. The snowball method starts with the thing that's the smallest amount. So the smallest amount of money. So if you've got 5 loans, 10 Rand, 20 Rand, 50 Rand, 100 Rand, 200 Rand, 500 Rand, you're going to start with the 10 Rand one and you're going to pay it off and once it's paid off, you're going to go to the next one. This is really great psychological, because what it does under the hood is it tells your brain, okay, look, I have achieved something small, which is what you want. You want your brain to go like, oh my goodness, I am able to pay off debt. And that's exactly what you want, right? So The other method that you can do is you can do the avalanche method. So as an avalanche that just flows down, basically what you do is you start with the one with the biggest interest rate. The reason is because that's the one that all your money is going into. Now, it might be one of your bigger loans, but from a scientific and mathematical perspective, the one with the highest interest rate, if you start with that one first, you're going to pay for your debt faster. But it isn't great on psychology. And many people that have debt have got this problem that they, that they're thinking like, oh my goodness, I'll never be able to get out of it. And if that is the case, I suggest what you do is start then rather with the smallest one and then the next one, which is the smallest one once you've paid that one off. But if you are the scientific type and the mathematical person and the quickest way out is the best and you know that you'll be able to stick with it, I recommend that you then do the highest interest rate one. It is going to work a little bit faster for you. So let's quickly talk about credit scores, okay? So credit scores, I want to touch on this here because it is part of the cash flow area, right? Credit scores tell you how much you can, if the bank would actually borrow your money and if you actually be able to get any money from a company like that for a home. Because few people can buy a home cash, right? So what you can do is you can go like, okay, I'm going to make small amounts of debt and repay them immediately, right? You can say, I've got a credit card and I pay it off directly after I'm making the debt. In South Africa, you can still to a certain extent get away with that. In the States, you have to have a track record of actually repaying interest or over a couple of months, depending on the state. So if you've got a clothing account, oftentimes what I did when I actually built mine, I've got a store account and I literally bought the stuff on the credit, gave it 2 or 3 days and then paid it off. You can literally also go and make the debt, buy the stuff, then go to the accounts desk and settle it right there and then, which I believe is quite a bit better. You do not want your cash flow to be eaten away by clothing accounts and things that you absolutely don't need. Do you need clothes? Yes. Do you really need expensive clothes and things that make you look flashy for other people? No, you do not. Okay, so recap. We've talked about budget, right? We've talked about the big terms, which are income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. Income, money in. Expenses, money out. Assets, things that you can sell at a later stage to make you money, or that generates cash. And liabilities, debt repayments, things that's eating into your cash flow. So we've also then talked about credit scores. We've touched on that. We've also talked about how to deal with debt. And I highly recommend that if you are struggling, don't take advice from people on YouTube or Twitter or any place like that. Rather go and see an expert and get an expert opinion about your money. Now, let's touch on the last thing, which is your money plan. Your money plan should tell you not only your budget, but also your long-term investments, savings, your risk, and all of these things. Now, we're going to get into the next couple of weeks. We're going to get into those videos. We're going to talk about those things. But I want to just touch on that and just say, be aware that you need to have a money plan. You need to say, I'm going to do this, then this, then this, then this. And this is the structure and the way that my money works, the system that my money works in. Okay. The last thing that I want to touch on is emergency funds. Now, emergency funds, we will touch on that on savings and investing, but I want to touch on it here and also on risk for the specific reason here that it is part of your cash flow. If you would get hit by a bus and you would be unable to work for 3 months, will you be okay? I recommend having 3 months of expenses, right? 3 months of expenses that you can have that needs to be available within 48 hours. Do not put it in your tax-free savings account because we'll get to that in investment. Please don't do that. Take my word for it. And check my blog out if you don't believe me, why I say so. But you need money available in case something bad might happen. You do not want to get caught with your pants down, right? And I know you say that your job is secure. I know that you say that your business is doing well. But be careful. Be careful. always have that emergency fund, a contingency fund that is gonna make you be okay if something bad would happen to you. So now that you know a little bit more about cash flow, I've touched on many things here, and I can write books and books, and people have written books and books because of this. The main takeaway is be mindful about where your money is going. Have a wonderful day and happy investing.